Chapter 450 to 451. After becoming the Jinchuriki of Jubi, Madara with a single Rinnegan could survive against Might Guy, who had opened all 8 gates. And even if injured to such an extent, he still managed to recover. So, at that point, Madara was obviously invincible. But Black Zetsu was able to subdue that invincible Madara, even if we take into account the element of sneak attack. The mere fact that Black Zetsu had the power to threaten Rakuto Sannin level powerhouses means that Black Zetsu can never be underestimated. So the next thing that Kuroto has doubts about at the moment is how much of Kagaya's chakra still remains within Black Zetsu, and how many times can he make attacks of the level he used against Madara. If there is only one time, then Kuroto can rest assured against Black Zetsu, because Black Zetsu's threat will be small, as he will definitely not waste it upon Kuroto. No matter what happens, he will only use it on the Jinchuriki of Jubi for reviving Kagaya at the most critical time. But if he can use such an attack twice, or maybe 3 times, or perhaps even more times, then the threat of Black Zetsu is perhaps no inferior to Nagato and Obito. Black Zetsu is the entity that Kuroto and the rest of the members of Amatsukami will have to be extremely careful against. Sigh. I must calm myself, thought Kuroto, then looked at Shursui and Itachi, and asked, "What do the two of you think about the message left by Rakuto Sannin?" Itachi said seriously, "Genjutsu is Genjutsu, no matter how one describes it, and what's false will remain false until the very end. I don't know what Rakuto Sannin thought while leaving such a message for us Uchiha, but I do not think that the infinite Tsukuyami can save the Uchiha clan or bring peace to the shinobi world." Undoubtedly, Itachi, who possesses Tsukuyami, do not agree with Project Tsukinomi, even if it is something proposed by Rakuto Sannin himself. This is because Itachi knows better than anyone that infinite Tsukuyami is an artificially created Genjutsu world working as per the wishes of the creator. If the world itself is artificially created, which means if the world itself is a false one, then how can it bring true peace? The peace brought by infinite Tsukuyami will be false peace as well. Shursui also shook his head immediately. The peace on the stone tablet is directed by manipulating the entire humankind. Such peace which is brought forth at the cost of everyone, except for the caster being manipulated, cannot be true peace. It's just a Genjutsu, and it won't change the reality no matter how one might try to glorify this sickening truth. Shursui, who has the Kodo Amatsukami as his Manjikyu Sharingan Dojutsu, understands better than anyone that manipulating others won't bring true peace. Kodo Amatsukami allows Shursui to manipulate anyone, anytime, anywhere as per his own whim at the mere cost of some chakra, and precisely because of this, Shursui is very resistant to the idea of infinite Tsukuyami. After all, when one person is being manipulated by the other, then they are not even on an equal footing, nor do they understand each other, because people who really understand each other do not need to rely on a Genjutsu to see through other person's reality. If both of you realize and understand this fact, then I am relieved. Kuroto was indeed relieved, although he believed that neither Shursui nor Itachi will be confused by the idea of Project Tsukinomi, or Infinite Tsukuyami, but he was indeed somewhat worried, and now that he has heard their individual opinion on Infinite Tsukuyami, he was very much relieved. Immediately, Kuroto can't help but snicker a little. Oh, the irony. Neither Madara nor Obito possesses a Genjutsu-type dojutsu, nor are they Genjutsu-type by nature. Of course, they may be extremely proficient in Genjutsu, but Genjutsu is not their specialty, and both of them were confused by the Project Tsukinomi and wanted to reflect the light on the moon to cover the entire world in a Genjutsu. They thought Project Tsukinomi to be the only method to save the world and bring peace to this war-torn world. On the other hand, Shursui and Itachi are both the Genjutsu type, perhaps being the 2 best Genjutsu masters in the entire shinobi world, including the past, present, and perhaps even the future. And despite their Genjutsu mastery, neither of the two is confused by Project Tsukinomi and understood that such a peace can never be considered true peace. Ironic indeed, thought Kuroto, then did not care about the stone tablet at all. Rather, he focused on the objective at hand and asked Itachi, "Where are the ancient scrolls?" Itachi nodded and immediately opened a secret compartment hidden in the wall, and took out a delicate box containing several scrolls and a few books. The books appeared quite old, with yellow pages, clearly indicating how old they are, giving Kuroto a bit of expectation and hope that he might be able to find what he is looking for in them. Sitting in a Seiza position, Kuroto, Shursui, and Itachi immediately started to go through these books and scrolls in search of information related to what Kuroto was looking for. First scroll, second scroll, third scroll, fourth scroll, fifth scroll, sixth scroll, and so on. Kuroto read and read and read in the hopes of finding the information he wanted, but found nothing worth attention. These scrolls and books record the history of the Uchiha clan, but what these scrolls specifically focus upon are the wars that the Uchiha clan fought. In this particular year they defeated that particular shinobi clan, these many Uchiha were sacrificed, and while these many enemies they killed, ultimately the Uchiha clan won the war. Then this happened. Then in that particular year the Uchiha clan fought against this particular clan, these many Uchiha were sacrificed, while these many enemies were killed, the war lasted for these many months, and so on and so forth. There is hardly any useful information recorded in these scrolls, as these scrolls don't even record the situation and causes of the war and conflicts. So no matter how much Kuroto read through them, he couldn't find anything worth noting. It seems either the scrolls recording what I want are with the Uchiha Patriarch, And if that's not the case, then perhaps Madara took away that information with him when he left Konoha. Thought Kuroto. Kuroto is more inclined towards the first option, because if Madara really bothered about such petty things and took away all the important information, then the Uchiha clan wouldn't have had any information or knowledge about Izanagi and Izanami. Therefore, what Kuroto is looking for has to be in the hands of the Uchiha Patriarch, but obtaining it from Uchiha Fugaka's hands is an impossible task, as that would most likely leak information about Amatsukami or Amatsukumi's intentions. Itachi noted Kuroto's expression and said, "Kuroto-san, it doesn't seem that what we are looking for can be found here." Nodding slightly, Kuroto changed his mind and decided to use a different approach, and for that, he turned towards Itachi and asked, "Itachi, if both Shisui and I were to die at the hands of Akatsuki or for whatever reasons, and both Konoha and Uchiha clan are about to be destroyed at the hands of Akatsuki, then what will you do?" Itachi was startled by such a question that came out of nowhere, but after quickly calming down himself, he thought and tried to imagine it. Shisui also looked at Itachi curiously, waiting for his answer, and after a while of thinking, he suddenly asked, "What about Tsukihai-san, Suijin, Fujin, Karen-chan, and Garakuen?" Kuroto was speechless at Itachi's question, then said, "Of course, Uchiha Tsukihai, Suijin, and Fujin are also dead." Itachi immediately shook his head. "Something like this will never happen. I will definitely not be the last one alive." Ah! Kuroto was again speechless. This kid, ha ha ha. On the side, even Shisui chuckled a little at Itachi's response. Kuroto sighed and said, "Well, imagine a situation where all the senior members of Amatsukami, except for you, have died. You, Karen, and Gaara are the only ones left in the Amatsukami, and you have to bear the responsibility of not only saving the Uchiha clan and the village, but also defeating the entire Akatsuki organization as well as stopping their plans. What would you do?" This time, Itachi had to consider it more seriously and said, "I will think of ways to increase my personal strength because that's very important if I want to stop an organization like the Akatsuki. Then search for allies with a similar mindset and high-end strength. Of course, the alliance with the 5 great shinobi villages would prove to be useful, especially when Kazekage-sama and Mizukichi-sama are both members of Amatsukami too. Maybe I will try to contact Orochimaru-san and convince him to cooperate with me. In short, I would leave no stone unturned to find a method of stopping the Akatsuki." "Yes, that's the intention." After a slight nod, Kuroto continued, "Think of all the ways you can, and will try to use in such a desperate situation in order to increase your personal strength. Jot it down somewhere, and show it to me." Kuroto found nothing that would point him towards the 2 spiritual artifacts, namely Totsuka Sword and Yada Mirror, and Kuroto has no idea where they were originally present. Not to mention he doesn't even have enough time to search them all over the continent. So Kuroto can only use this method to search for Totsuka Sword and Yada Mirror. Kuroto thinks that, since the Totsuka Sword can seal its target even from a long range in a genjutsu-like world of drunken dreams for all eternity, it has a very good chance of succeeding in sealing the DMS Abito if used as a surprise attack. Although Kuroto can't guarantee it given the fact that Kamui can even be used to transfer chakra from the Pure Land to the Shinobi World or Kagaya's dimension, it is still one of the best means that has a high chance of success. And using Sword of Totsuka is much easier and without any sacrifice when compared to Izanami or the Reaper Death Seal. After all, the price of using one is permanent blindness in one eye, and death for the second option. Itachi was at a loss upon hearing Kuroto's words. Has the situation arisen to such a desperate state? And he can't help but wonder. Obviously, Itachi still doesn't have much of an idea of how powerful can DMS Abito be, so he is not so sure, but given how serious Kuroto is, even he felt that he needs to consider things very carefully from here on out. Before leaving the Naka Shrine, Kuroto gave several instructions to Itachi, exhorted Itachi to stay close to Shisui and protect him during the adaptation period, and at the same time warned Shisui to be especially careful these days against enemy attacks. After all, Abito, Danzo, and Orochimaru, all are threats that cannot be underestimated. Moreover, all 3 of them have the right motivation to deal with Uchiha Shisui, the current strongest of the Uchiha clan, because to deal with the Uchiha clan one must first overcome the obstacle of Uchiha Shisui. But because Shisui is not in the right condition now, therefore, he can't use his true combat power, which is why he must be protected. Itachi obviously understood Kuroto's reasoning and made sure that he would protect Shisui. At the same time, he would carry out other instructions given by Kuroto as well. Satisfied, Kuroto bid farewell to Shisui and Itachi, then quietly strolled back towards his home. On the way to his home, Kuroto of course thought about the many changes that happened during the day. And honestly, Kuroto is quite glad that he did not become arrogant and overconfident after awakening the Tenseigan and did not expose his true combat power and true identity to the public, otherwise, he would have become the center of attention of all the enemies. And if that had been the case, Kuroto would have to be constantly worried and guard against all kinds of conspiracies, not only from Abito and the other enemies but also from many people around him. After all, who knows when someone will start getting strange ideas, or maybe the people they cherish the most are taken hostage, so that would leave them with no choice but to fulfill the instructions of the kidnappers. Judging from the method Abito used to conspire against his own sensei, He is definitely the kind of guy who has no bottom line when it comes to achieving his goal. Of course, Kuroto is no different, but that's not the point here. The point is that, had Obito known Kuroto's true identity and power, Obito would gain more chess pieces that he can use to take advantage of Kuroto's weakness. But that wouldn't be the case for Kuroto. After all, Obito is completely empty from the inside and someone who doesn't even care for who he is. And since there is no one left alive whom Obito seems to care about any longer, so there is probably nothing stopping him from using even the dirtiest of means to take advantage, but Kuroto won't be able to do so. Then, Kuroto would have no option left but to bring Noara Rin back to life and use her to deal with Obito, but bringing her back to life would be a very difficult task for the current Kuroto, because if the current him were to bring her to life, then he would die as a result, which is definitely not beneficial enough. Fortunately, Kuroto has been a level-headed person, and only chose to reveal himself to the extent that wouldn't be too suspicious, and wouldn't cause him too many problems. Now one could argue that if Kuroto really wanted to, he could have completely hidden, not garnered even a bit of attention, and that would have been much more advantageous, but Kuroto doesn't think that way. According to him, being too inconspicuous is also quite suspicious, as it would at some point definitely garner attention. After all, there's only so much one can truly hide, and there's only so much one can survive against just based on luck. This is why it is better to reveal a few things, make others think that they are the ones in control, make others believe that they know everything about him when in reality they would have no idea of the true depths of his abilities. This way others will believe that he is a bit difficult person to deal with, but at the same time he is not too big of a threat and can be disposed of any time if they really feel like doing it. As a result, they will focus on things and people who are more important and more threatening, that is the Amatsukami, compared to just an elite Umbu squad captain. Now considering the fact that Amatsukami is very secretive and hidden too well, so Obito and the rest of the Akatsuki will have to direct more and more of their attention and efforts towards finding and understanding them to be able to deal with them. But since they won't be able to find them, so they will also fear Amatsukami. After all, the fear of the unknown is the greatest of all fear. And this unknown, that is the Amatsukami, will also stop them from running rampant, and restrict them subconsciously so that they would not dare to act rashly. I suppose that even now, all Akatsuki personnel are more than likely either increasing their individual strength or investigating the traces of Amatsukami all over the world now, thought Kuroto as his lips curled into a mocking snicker. Before finding Amatsukami that is playing Akatsuki and the other villages in the palm of their hands, Akatsuki should not dare to deal with the 5 great shinobi villages, unless they are confident enough. The lesson they learned at Amigakure should have been more than enough to keep them in check. After all, even Nagato, who had the Rinnegan and could summon Geto Mazo, and Nibi almost lost his life at the hands of the leader of Amatsukami. So even if Akatsuki is reluctant, they have to admit that Amatsukami can actually threaten their existence. This is probably the only reason why they have been quiet for so long and haven't carried out their other plans. Even Obito sneaked inside Konoha and took back his eye, but did not care about the Uchiha clan that hasn't been destroyed yet, nor did he care about all the movements that Konoha has been making these days. In Obito's eyes, the threat of a mere Uchiha clan in Konoha is nothing compared to Amatsukami. But what he doesn't understand is that if he doesn't make his move on the Uchiha clan in Konoha, he would never be able to find anything about Amatsukami, which will eventually form an endless loop. In Konoha's guest house, Kimimaro looked at the night view outside the window with many thoughts going in his mind. The events that happened for the whole day kept flashing in his mind, but the major part of all those flashes was the scene where Hyuga Kuroto dared to satirize Orochimaru-sama openly. Intense killing intent appears in his heart whenever he thinks of Hyuga Kuroto. At this time, a shadow emerged from the darkness and sneaked into the room quietly. "Who are you? Show yourself." Kimimaro turned around quickly and said, all while a bone blade extended out from his hand, staring at the intruder with cold eyes. The shadow wasn't panicked under the cold gaze of Kimimaro. Rather, it smiled and said, as expected of Kimimaro, "Kabuto." Kimimaro recognized that tone and asked, "What are you going here?" Kimimaro adjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose, then said, "I have heard about everything that happened today. How does it feel to be able to defeat the genius kid of the Uchiha clan?" The genius of the Uchiha clan? He wasn't enough for me to even bother to care about. Because the victory against Uchiha Sasuke was too easy, Kimimaro felt no sense of accomplishment. Kabuto smirked and said in a casual tone, "That's right, compared to the hateful Hyuga Kuroto who betrayed Orochimaru-sama, the genius kid of the Uchiha clan is really not worth mentioning." Huh? As soon as Kimimaro heard Kabuto's words, his face turned gloomy. Kimimaro can ignore others insulting him, but what he can't ignore are the insults to Orochimaru-sama, and Hyuga Kuroto not only dared to betray Orochimaru but even satirize Orochimaru to his face, which really made Kimimaro angry and determined to assassinate him. That's right, Kabuto should know. Huh? Kimimaro's eyes lit up, and after making up his mind, he asked Kabuto, "Kabuto, you should know where he lives, right?" Kabuto was obviously surprised by Kimimaro's question, and asked, "What are you going to do?" "Don't forget that we are currently in Konoha, and from what I have heard, he is a jonin," Kimimaro said coldly. "Tell me where he lives, and you don't need to care about other things." With a bit of hesitation, Kabuto drew a map on a piece of paper. then handed it to Kimimaro with a worried expression. Be careful. If you feel that you don't stand a chance, then don't insist on it. With an indifferent look, Kimimaro took the map from Kabuto, and without saying a word he disappeared from the room. After Kimimaro left, Kabuto showed a strange smile. Similar to Kimimaro, who hates Hyuga Kuroto, even Kabuto hates Hyuga Kuroto, and he too wants to get rid of Hyuga Kuroto. After Kimimaro had left, a hoarse voice suddenly came from behind Kabuto. Kabuto, I don't remember. I allowed you to do something like this. Kabuto turned around with a shudder, immediately knelt respectfully on the ground, and said, Orochimaru-sama. Orochimaru slowly walked out of the shadow and said, Aren't you going to give me an explanation? Sweat poured out of Kabuto's forehead, and he swallowed deeply upon feeling the heavy pressure he was subjected to.
Orochimaru-sama.
I just wanted to clear away the traitor. Is that so? With a smile, Orochimaru cast his gaze outside the window and said, It's fine then. Upon noticing that Orochimaru does not have any intention of pursuing the matter, Kabuto sighed in relief. At the same time, he also realized that if Orochimaru was really opposed to the idea, then he would have stopped Kimimaro before Kimimaro left. Gazing at the night view of Konoha outside the window, Orochimaru said lightly, It's okay for him to try it out, but whether he succeeds or not is an entirely different matter. At the same time, Orochimaru perceived the reaction of Umbu Shinobi to Kimimaro's movements and quirked his eyebrow upon noticing something. It appears that he is not taking any chances, huh? Was his thought. Initially, Orochimaru had completely different plans for the alliance ceremony. Orochimaru wanted to embarrass his sensei, Sandaime Hokage, in front of all by using the Edo Tensei of Shodaime and Nidaime to kill him. Whenever Orochimaru thinks of Sarutobi-sensei being forced to battle to the death against the two previous Hokage, who are also his sensei, and the scene where all the three of them together destroy the village in the aftermath of their battle, Orochimaru feels extremely excited. For him, other than the pursuit of eternal life and mastery of all the jutsu, destroying everything that his sensei loves and cherishes has become a joy for him. But Orochimaru never expected that Konoha's defense would be so rigorous, much stricter than the spies initially reported. The presence of the representatives of Sunigakure, Kusagakure, and Takigakure was a matter Orochimaru did not take into account. Not to mention there are also Jiraiya and Tsunade in the village. Then the Konoha military police force led by Uchiha Fugaka too, and finally the identity of one of the Umbu keeping watch over him. Although the fourth Umbu joined in keeping watch over him not very long ago, Orochimaru recognized him based on the recent intelligence he has just received from Shimura Danzo only about an hour ago. The fourth Umbu with the weasel mask keeping watch over him turned out to be none other than Uchiha Itachi of the Uchiha clan. No wonder Uchiha Itachi was respectful to Kuroto-kun. After all, he is a subordinate in Kuroto-kun's Umbu squad. Thought Orochimaru about what he had learned from Shimura Danzo's mouth in exchange for some things. In the face of so many high-tier combat personnel, especially Uchiha Itachi, even Orochimaru can't help but sigh and dared not act rashly. Besides, Orochimaru is also not sure about what combat power can the two Edo Hokage display. Therefore, he decided not to make any move on Konoha, for now, at least. But of course, this doesn't mean that he won't test a few things. For example, what does Hyuga Kuroto want from Kimimaro? And the attitude of Uchiha Itachi towards Konoha and Hyuga Kuroto. After all, the moment Kimimaro sneaked out, he was obviously noticed by the four Umbu. But neither of them stopped him, not even Uchiha Itachi. Therefore, Orochimaru was more curious about a lot of things. Among the four Umbu, Hana asked Weasel, Is it alright to ignore him? Weasel, Crow Clone, nodded. I have had my summon follow him secretly, so his movements are still under my watch. Rabbit said, But I wonder what does Captain wants from him? Akame answered Rabbit's doubts. It's to obtain intelligence on Kagaya Takashi, the newest member of Akatsuki, as per the intelligence Captain managed to obtain while he was in Kirigakure. Kagaya Takashi along with Hashigaki Kisame and Chinoike Majida have also joined the Akatsuki, and since this kid, Kimimaro, is one of the last two members of the Kagaya clan, therefore, he is a source of intelligence that we can't let go so easily. Hana nodded. Makes sense, I suppose. Then, without any more care, she continued the mission assigned to the four members of Team Ro by their captain.